This is Sanjay Gangal from MCADCafe. I'm here with Jeff Folds, Director of Business Development at Origin International. Hello, Jeff.
Hi, Sanjay.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell us briefly about Origin International?
Origin is a company that's in the business of dimensional engineering systems, if you like. What we do is help engineers solve dimensional problems in the manufacturing process. We've been doing that for about 25 years, a little more than that. A lot of our customers are some of the bigger names in aerospace and automotive, oil and gas. And one of our biggest partners is Solidworks. Our main deployment in the CAD environment is on Solidworks with our Checkmate for Solidworks product.
Okay, so tell us a little bit more about the Checkmate for Solidworks.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things to bear in mind with solving dimensional problems. One of the key issues is that product manufacturing information, there's a lot of it when you start measuring up the parts, and the complexity of the information is very high when you look at all the datum reference frames that have to be taken into account and all the features for all those datum reference frames. So in order to be able to solve dimensional problems, you really need to be able to run many iterations of better fits for the part data with the actual CAD nominals. And that's a really complicated process to set up. It's a very heavy bookkeeping process. And what we do is we automate all of that process. And we take out the requirement for the expert user to set up the whole system so that we can put that skill and that talent to work in the hands of manufacturing engineers and design engineers to help them solve problems. So that's really the core technology of Checkmate for SolidWorks. And basically we do probably three things really well. One is that we automate the use of product manufacturing information wherever it comes from and wherever it's going to, whether it came from the native SolidWorks model-based definitions, or it's coming in from a CAD system like NX or ProE or CATIA with their SolidWorks annotation or their NBD annotations through a system like QIF. So we automate the use of all that in terms of generating measurements, and then we also automate the output of that in terms of talking to the vast community of different coordinate measuring machines, and also being able to process the measurements from scanners, regardless of the type of scanner, as long as we have an STL file. So we automate that whole process. The second thing that we do really well is that we simulate all of the changes to the part that may need to be made, or the process that may need to be made in order to correct the dimensional problems. And what that means is that we can find the best fix in the least amount of time. And what we're talking about here is compressing a process that can take weeks or even months in complex situations down to hours. So it makes a big difference in that area. And then, of course, once you've got that automation and that simulation, what that turns into is acceleration in terms of manufacturing operations management and overall equipment effectiveness. More throughput means more revenue. So that's really the core of what Origin does with Checkmate for SolidWorks.
Can you also tell me a little bit more about what exactly is a dimensional metrology?
How many days do you have?
Only a few minutes.
So it's a big topic, but I'll try to summarize. So dimensional metrology is the science of measurement of volumes and parts and things that exist in space. Mm-hmm. And it's a very rigorous discipline that involves a lot of testing in terms of internal mathematical algorithms to make sure that the results that you're getting are consistent, and that a part that was measured on this coordinate measuring machine today is giving you the same results if you measure that same part on a different coordinate measuring machine next week, or you measure it a month later on a scanner. So that's what dimensional metrology is all about. One other thing that I might say is that in the past, a lot of the function of the dimensional metrology team in QA was to essentially document what was wrong. And the transition that Origin's been very proud to be part of and is really picking up steam now is this understanding that just understanding what's wrong is just the first step, and making the data useful to the other members of the community that need it is what's really what we're talking about here, so that you're getting much more value out of all that inspection data.
Okay. And what makes Checkmate for Solidworks unique and differentiated in the marketplace?
Yeah, so I think there's the really key thing about Checkmate for Solidworks is its ability to do process tuning. And that can be as simple as batch produced parts that go through multiple operations in order to get from the raw stock to the finished part. And that could be precision machine parts in any metal you care to consider, or it could be cast parts that then go through a secondary machining op to finish them. Both of those really are process tuning applications at one level. And then the second piece I think that's process tuning is probably the more obvious one, which is large scale continuous manufacturing processes like stamping, molding, weldments, and that sort of thing, where you've got assemblies of parts coming in from different processes particularly, and you need to be able to make sure that the behavior that was predicted in your stack-up tolerance analysis in the design phase actually plays out that way when you get the manufactured parts, which may not live in the ideal center of that tolerance bell curve that the stack-up tolerance software was hoping you'd be able to achieve. So what we do is connect the gap between what the ideal world of CAD and stack-up tolerance tells you and the actual world of what came out of the manufacturing equipment is telling you have to start to play around with.
And what are the latest industry trends you see these days?
I think the main one is that we've got a demographic shift of really unprecedented proportions, in that the older people in the manufacturing community who really are experienced are all approaching retirement age, and many of them have already started to retire, and there's just not enough youth with the right skills coming into manufacturing to be able to replace them all. So what's happening is that product manufacturing information, which historically has relied on human interpretation to jump the gap from design to manufacturing and from manufacturing to quality assurance, when you've got people who aren't as familiar with that process, product manufacturing information can be missing, it can be incorrect, and so these are things that we really need to automate these processes to help the people in the process do a better job. And that means there's a big push on now for model-based definition, which is basically translating product management information into language that the computer can understand, and that can also be translated from one environment to another. So I think that's the second big trend that's going on, that historically we've tended to have silos of data. We've got CAD data from this vendor, CAD data from this vendor. You've got inspection data from one CMM vendor or a different scanner vendor. And what we really are seeing now is that the requirement is for a much freer flow of all that data, and particularly the PMI that defines what the design intent was, and the PMI that's captured from the inspection process, so that you can see how those things need to be resolved. And of course, I think the third thing that we're seeing from an industry point of view is COVID. We were already seeing a trend towards manufacturing moving back onshore before COVID happened, and COVID has really underscored the urgent need to shorten up supply lines. And in order to do that, we're going to need to get a lot more efficient in how we manage all of this product manufacturing information, because interpretation is not efficient, because it leaves room for error, and that's not something that we can really afford to do at this point. So I think those are really the big issues from our point of view. And I think one other issue that's kind of important to bear in mind is that the sub-tier supplier community is going to become a lot more important. That's part of the reason why we focus on the Solidworks community, because it is the biggest CAD tool in that environment. And what they're telling us is they want to be able to do all of this problem-solving collaboration in the platform that they're most comfortable with, rather than having to learn other applications on top of everything else.
And what is the best way for people to find out more about Origin International on the internet?
So the first thing that we'd love them to do is type in originintel.com, www.originintel.com, visit the website, and take the opportunity to book a meeting with us so that we can discuss what you're doing, what we're doing, and see if we can help each other. And I think the second thing that people would probably want to do is go to YouTube and type in Origin International, and you'll get to our page, and you'll be able to see a whole lot of video tutorials on how the software gets used to solve different kinds of manufacturing problems.
And is it okay if I ask you a couple of personal questions, Jeff?
Sure thing.
Okay. So what is your personal passion outside work?
Right. So I think there's a couple. So one is from a personal exercise point of view, skiing and getting into the outdoors. It's also something that I really enjoy doing with my family and my children, my wife, who are a huge passion as well. I'm now seeing my kids get to the point where they're starting to take off on their own careers. My daughter is now teaching in Cambodia on a 2-year contract at the Canadian International School there. My son is just getting down to writing his kinesiology practitioner's exam. So this is really great after all this time to see them just developing this fabulous passion of their own and taking that with them.
Okay. By the way, what are your favorite ski slopes?
Not in Ontario. The hills are definitely hills here, but one of my favorites of all time is Whistler in Vancouver. It's certainly up there with any of the places that I've skied in Colorado or Utah. And I have lots of friends who have cabins there, so it makes it even more of a social thing when we go out to the West Coast.
Yeah, Whistler is definitely a beautiful place.
Yes. Just make sure you take a raincoat in case.
Yes. And can I also ask you if you can tell us something about yourself that most people at Origin International don't know about you?
Some of them know that my other passion is actually sailing, racing in keelboats. We've had some very successful races, and we've had some very unsuccessful races. So that's an amateur activity. One of the things that most people don't know is that having gotten into skiing as a volunteer ski patroller earlier on, I wound up on the first aid team that was competing for the national first aid competition, and the team that I was working with won. So I am a past national first aid champion, having beaten all of the teams from the big mountains out west, which was something we were very proud of.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. I'm really impressed. Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for taking time to record this interview with us. Have a great day and stay safe.
Sanjay, thank you very much, and the same to you.
This is Sanjay Gangal from MCADCafe.